Okay, some big decisions in the NBA are going to be made this summer, and that is where Zach Lowe comes in. Zach, should the 76ers give the max to James Harden this offseason?
No, under no circumstances. If you're talking the 5-year fully guaranteed max, absolutely not. That went out the door a long time ago with his latest elimination game blunder. That's gone. Shorter term deal, please.
Okay, and let's see if he accepts that. Now, should the Pelicans give the rookie max extension to Zion Williamson?
Absolutely. Despite the injuries, you have to do it. He's that talented. I suspect they'll build in some injury-related protections or games played protections, just as the Sixers did with Joel Embiid before. But yeah, if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, small market, you bring back Zion, no doubt.
Okay, now here's the big one. Should the Nets give a max deal to Kyrie Irving?
Woo! Sounds easy to say no. Hard no. He doesn't deserve it. He hasn't earned it. He never plays. But you do risk some discomfort or alienation with KD, a DEFCON 1 scenario of a trade request from KD. I still, though, say no. Find a middle ground that makes sense for everybody, a shorter-term deal.
Okay, no with caveats. And by the way, Kyrie put out this, not put out, but he's got a reported trade wish list, including both LA teams, the Lakers, the Clippers, as well as the crosstown Knicks, the Heat, the Mavericks, and mind-bogglingly also the 76ers. None of those teams have enough cap space to sign him without Brooklyn's help, and sources said some of them aren't interested in acquiring him. Okay, so Woj, you were leading the charge on this story, that list. As you look at that list, does this make any sense to you? How do you process this?
Well, listen, part of this is a negotiation. He has wanted that long-term max deal in Brooklyn. It is not available to him there. I think the one team with the most interest in Kyrie Irving are the Lakers. There's really not a sign-and-trade scenario with Brooklyn that makes sense. Of course, if the Lakers wanted to offer Anthony Davis in a sign-and-trade, of course the Nets would love that. But that's not going to happen. And so if you're Kyrie Irving, your way to get to the Lakers very likely would be to opt out of your contract next week and sign the $6 million exception that the Lakers would have available. Now, the difference between that and his opt-in with the Nets is over $30 million. They could clear cap space the next year. They would have Russell Westbrook potentially coming off their cap and sign you to a more lucrative long-term deal if things work out. But in most cases, you would say a player's not going to do that. He's not going to give up that much money. But Kyrie Irving did give up about $17 million last year in salary by not getting vaccinated. Perhaps really impacted the loss of a shoe deal with the fact that he's been so unavailable. So with him, I don't think you say that won't happen, that'll never happen. But I think that list in terms of teams like Dallas, Philadelphia, the Clippers, I don't think there's interest there. The Knicks, they have some priorities well ahead of Kyrie Irving. Jalen Brunson is what, with Dallas, is who they are trying to clear cap space to sign in free agency, not Kyrie Irving right now.
Wow, but I can't see them turning down Kyrie if there's a possibility, because the Knicks seem to love that superstar talent. So, Zach, I look at this list, which just has me mind blown. Which team on that list, on that trade list, do you think is his best fit?
Well, let's be clear. Uncertainty is Kyrie Irving's leverage right now. Uncertainty about Durant and uncertainty about his option. The minute on paper he opts in for next year, if he does, he would seem to relinquish some control to the Nets, who could just keep him. But he may say, I'm only opting in on the condition that you have a prearranged trade to one of these other teams. As for Fitz, I agree with Woj. The Lakers would obviously love to have him. Is there a 3-team trade where Russ somehow goes back to Oklahoma City in a salary dump? That seems complicated. The Knicks are an obvious fit if they think the Brunson situation isn't going to work out. Dallas may just outbid them for Jalen Brunson. We'll see. On paper, not in real life, but on paper, I've always liked the Dallas fit for him as the sort of theoretical secondary ball handler, jump shooter around Luka. But I just feel like coming off a conference finals run, as Woj indicated, I feel like that kind of ship has sailed for the Mavericks. I don't see much there. And as for the other teams, they got a lot of other things to sort out. Obviously, there's huge questions about Kyrie Irving's reliability. That said, if he's healthy, the reason he was out last year was the vaccination mandate. That's gone. That's a non-issue. If he tells people, hey, look, I can get you 60, 65 games, that's possible. Who knows?
Isn't that the problem? Isn't that the problem when it comes down to KD? I believe, KD is a special talent. We understand one of the best basketball players, if not the best in the world. But when it comes down to holding his teammates and his quote-unquote brothers accountable, he does a poor job at that. He holds the media and people on the Twitter app more accountable than he do the players in his locker room. What do you mean he's going to stay out of that? Like, we're talking about a guy that you plan with Kyrie Irving to come down to Brooklyn and play together.
Are you saying part of his job is to keep Kyrie there to make sure that works? To make sure.
I mean, part of his job is to be honest with his brother. Okay. Part of his job is to hold his brother accountable. He's had his back throughout this whole time. When people attack Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant attacked those people. At what point are you going to hold him accountable and say, hey, bro, hey, listen, I'm tired of it. I love you to death, but when are you going to provide for me what I need you to provide and have my back?
Go ahead, RC.
But I'm saying, Kendrick, you don't know if Kevin Durant is doing that behind the scenes. And now, I don't know if he is either, but he's not supposed to come out on a podcast and say I'm holding Kyrie accountable. He's not supposed to come out on a podcast and talk about Kyrie Irving's business. You know that as well as I know that. KP, this is how it works, and you from a place that's just like from a place like that where I'm from. I'm with you when you right, and I'm with you when you wrong in public. Now, if he feels that Kyrie is doing some things or he wants Kyrie to come back, you have that conversation with Kyrie. But you certainly don't come out on a podcast and voice that publicly, because now it messes up the situation even more.
I didn't say you had to come out publicly. But when you look at Kyrie actions, are you going to sit up here and tell me that Kevin Durant has been holding Kyrie Irving accountable? Or see, you have kids. If your kids and you're going to somebody else's house for a kickback or a family gathering, and your kids are going to these people's house and destroying these people's houses, jumping on couches and things to that nature, what those people going to say? Hey, what are these people going to say? They're going to say, you know what? RC is not doing a great job at home disciplining their kids. But if your kids go to their house and they're sitting down and they're being polite and they're saying, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, and those people are saying, oh, they're just some sweet babies, then guess what? Those people are going to say, Ryan Clark is doing an excellent job at his house.
That's not the same thing.
It is the same thing.
Not the same thing.
It is the same thing.
He says that because his kids are always the sweet ones, right? RC, I bet. Maybe not. All right, hey, but Wendy, this brings up a really good point, though. Really quick, producers. I know we want to move on, but I just have to say, we're talking about accountability, and I wonder if there's still interest among all these teams in Kyrie, because one of the biggest things here is it's hard to hold him accountable. He's just a different dude, Wendy. He's a guy who kind of marches to the beat of his own drummer. So when these other teams are looking at him, even if he does opt out, is he going to be the kind of player, even for $6 million, that they want to bring in, given the history and everything else?
For $6 million, the Lakers would crawl over glass to get him, for sure. For a $200 million contract extension, where you have to give him all of that money and all of that trust, no, that is a much smaller list. But the list does exist. And something happened last night that I found probably, to me, the biggest story of last night, other than the change in the number one pick expected, is what the New York Knicks did in relation to their chances with Kyrie Irving. 24 hours ago, I was on here saying, I am not seeing the Knicks doing anything that indicates they're interested in Kyrie. Well, that changed. Last night, the Knicks traded out of the lottery, not out of the 27th pick. The Knicks traded out of the lottery and picked up 3 first-round picks in doing so, and completely maneuvered with 3 trades in about 15 minutes to begin to clear salary cap space. And the Knicks, as we sit here today, have about $20 million in salary cap space they didn't have yesterday, and they now have, believe it or not, 8 first-round draft picks that they are able to trade to either clear more space or use in trades for players. The situation that we believe is their number one priority is Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson and the Knicks are in a free agent situation like I've never seen in my career, because his father is now on the Knicks coaching staff. The president of the Knicks held him as a baby. And the son of the president of the Knicks, Leon Rose's son, Sam, is one of Jalen Brunson's agents, and he is an unrestricted free agent. I promise you, the Knicks are more aware of Jalen Brunson's intentions than any free agent in any team in the history of free agency. There's no way that they don't know. So why are they clearing this cap space? Are they clearing this cap space because they know that they're going to be able to get Jalen Brunson? Or are they clearing this cap space because Kyrie Irving has suddenly become potentially available? And I would not prioritize Kyrie Irving if I were the Knicks, and I'm not saying that the Knicks are doing that. But when you look at the Knicks' move last night, Kyrie Irving went from maybe, I guess we could talk about it, to a viable option if they want to go that route. Kyrie now has an option that if he were to opt out of his contract, the Knicks, without too much work, could open up a cap space to sign him. They also could do it for Jalen Brunson. So the big development in the Kyrie Irving sweepstakes yesterday wasn't this list that Woj got. I mean, it was very good reporting and certainly was fascinating. A team actually started making moves that could potentially get Kyrie Irving in New York with that rivalry with the Nets. And so this is going to be fascinating to watch what else the Knicks do between now and next Wednesday, and then the opening of free agency next Thursday.
Wow. Just wow when you think about the implications of all that. That Kyrie could end up there, that Jalen Brunson could end up there, and what that would do for the Knicks.